And we're live with this week's Friday Hangout. We're excited to be here this week. We've got all kinds of exciting things going on. We have a fabulous guest, Fernando Labastida, and he'll be with us in just a moment. But in the meantime, I'd like to introduce the scintillating and fascinating, looking which one it is, Adam Helway.
Oh! Scintillating. I feel like or something like that. You know, touch the shoulder, see the steam coming up.
Well, that's what Steve does. He goes, that's Steve.
To himself.
In a nutshell. Steve, say hello.
Hola. I didn't get a lead in. I just got, there was scintillating Adam Helway and Steve. That's really cool.
Fabulous.
That's going to be the new.
Fascinating.
That's going to be the new introduction of our duo on stage.
So listen. One of the things we thought we would just kick off is like talk about Elo here. We were having this discussion, and we thought we should just continue it here. So if I can, so one of the things is like I looked at it. I got an invite.
Elo.com. Let's give a little.
It's actually not. That's actually incorrect.
Elo.co.
Elo.co.
And so, and I guess people are actually selling invites on eBay and stuff, which is pretty funny. So it's a super stripped down site. It's right now it's really hard to find people on it. I was trying to find Adam Helway and could not find you with their current user interface. So it's still Uber MVP, minimum viable product. But one of the things I thought about when I was looking at it is I feel one of Google Plus's biggest barriers to entry was it seems really complex. There are a lot of things you can do, which is really awesome things you can do. But I think that for people just getting into it, they get a little put off. One thing about Elo, which I thought was nice, is it is super simple, and I felt that maybe Google Plus would have done even better had it had at least one level of that.
It is super
interface.
Simple. I'll give you that.
And then Adam wanted to share his thoughts on that and school me some.
You go first, Adam.
Super simple, as in it sort of walks sideways into walls. Simple,
Nothing like a good, funny special needs joke in the morning, right?
I didn't say that. I didn't say it like that. But the overall the site itself, there's one thing to be stripped down and simplified, and there's another thing to actually be missing the mark on a wide range of basic user interface and design-related cues that will really make it an awesome site. And really, when it comes to features, it has like 2, maybe 3 features total. So when you look at, you can't even find your friends on there, right? So everybody's got to sort of advertise about it, which maybe is an advantage to them because now everybody's
they did that on purpose.
Yeah, everybody's going to Facebook and Twitter and going, by the way, I'm blah 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 on Elo and I'm blah 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 on Elo. Hey, Fernando.
There's Fernando.
Hello.
And so we're talking a little bit about Elo for a moment, Fernando, just before we lead into the other topic. But there was a post that I don't know if you saw, Steve, on my page, my Facebook, about somebody basically going through all of the design sins that Elo has, and they're many and they're big, and so I think that there's a big difference between simplicity and really like being half-baked, which is what Elo is, in my opinion.
Well, when you talk about simplicity too, okay, I'm a very experienced internet user, and it took me like a minute and a half to figure out how to post. That unless you mouse over just the right area on the page, you don't see the icons to post, to figure out how to add an image. And I'm not stupid, so I'm old, but I'm not stupid. And I was really amazed at how clunky and how frustrating it is. And I know that a lot of people are comparing it to Google Plus, like you did, Steve. That Google Plus is very complex and it's got a lot going on, but it's got so much going for it. I think Elo is finally the poster child for really crappy interface that Google Plus was before. Now I love Google Plus because it's so much better. Fernando, how do you feel about it? Are you on Elo?
No, not yet. Actually, I've kind of been a little bit late to the bandwagon.
Yeah, it's
You're not missing much.
Worth going. I swear, I've been there like.
I already saw
minutes.
somebody write a blog post about how brands should stay away from Elo. I think it was Contently.
Mm.
because it's very anti-brand over there at LO.
Should we explain who Fernando is?
Yes, Fernando. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, well, I'm Fernando Labastida. I live here in Austin, Texas. I'm a Longhorns fan.
Go
Texas
Longhorns.
Longhorns. Yeah, Hook'em Horns, and my daughter goes to Texas A&M, so we've got.
I was going to say, isn't
conflict,
Longhorns the team that keeps losing to A&M? Isn't that team?
Well, they don't play each other anymore. They're in different conferences. So, but they used to beat A&M all the time, right? And so I've worn many hats, as Janet said. Most recently, just started our brand new content marketing firm, Content Propulsion. It's focused on helping Latin American technologies market themselves in the U.S. market, and vice versa, helping U.S. in the Latin American market. We've partnered with a firm called 13th Floor Studios in San Antonio. We're actually doing a couple of events in Guatemala and Costa Rica, December 2nd in Costa Rica and December 4th in Guatemala.
I love Costa Rica.
Looking for speakers. Yeah, looks like it's, well, San Jose, or it could be by the beach. We haven't decided that yet.
Either way. Either way.
So you're looking for
Beautiful
speakers,
places.
right?
Yeah, we're looking for some dynamic speakers who can educate people on content marketing.
Oh,
we happen to know some of those.
Yeah, we know a
But
few
instead of
folks
pimping ourselves out on our own show, let's move on to talk a little bit about B2B and content, because one of the things, that we've talked about many times on the show is, what B2B content really means. I mean, is content marketing just Steve has a question. Is content marketing just a common term that we're all using and it's way overused and it means so many things that it doesn't have meaning anymore, or is it better defined for B2B?
Could you rephrase the question now? Just kidding.
Probably should have.
I mean, I think that I don't want to use any overused cliches, and I'm probably going to have to. But I mean, I think that B2B content really has been traditionally very up till recently has been very dry and boring. And in fact, I was looking at the websites of several large global consulting / IT managed services companies, the kind that span the globe and have operations in India and Brazil, etc. And their stuff is still pretty dry and boring. And so I'm just wondering how they're really capturing the interest of, it's like, okay, CEOs, they want to get really deep into the data. They want to know the hard facts, but they also want to be entertained. They also want people to cater to their short attention spans, and I'm still seeing white papers out there. So I think that the ones that are doing really good B2B content are the ones that are speaking to the human in us. The ones that are speaking to what we're interested in, what gets us excited. I really like what Marketo does with a lot of their sort of all-encompassing guides or ebooks on everything under the sun related to email marketing or automation, etc. And Marketo markets to larger companies out there. So I think that there's still a lot of what is it? The Content Marketing Institute says 92 or 93% of B2B companies are doing content marketing. Yes, but I'm still seeing that it's just dry, boring content, and there needs to be some kind of disruption out there.
Well, they're the ones that say it's content marketing, right? And the answer to survey, it isn't really necessarily what we would consider content.
Yeah, I guess the question, when you say dry and boring, I mean, I guess, what does that mean to you exactly? I mean, because if I'm selling, so if I'm doing something, if my company does drywall, and I do content marketing, how exciting, engaging is my drywall content going to be?
Well, I mean, I have a friend who does drywall, and I can just imagine him doing a really funny video of him doing a drywall, because he's a really personable guy from Brazil, and I'm sure he could do a really nice, entertaining video, a la the what's that blender company?
Blend Tech.
Blend Tech.
Blend Tech.
Like,
Blend Tech.
Why couldn't you do a video like that about drywall?
So what do you say? Like, so people like I think that one of the challenges is that people don't. I think regardless about whether it's dry or not, and I think that there's a discussion there. But one of the problems with content marketing really is that people don't understand this idea of creating content that really is not about them, but it's really about the person they're speaking to, and that's still very hard for companies that have this really kind of command and control mentality. So when people come to you and go, hey, yeah, we did do content marketing, and it just didn't work. And we're starting to see that now, where more people are going, oh, we tried it and it didn't work for us. What do you tell them?
I mean, I was actually just talking to a client like that the other day. We tried it and it didn't work for us. They were blogging on a consistent basis. They were generating leads and people who I guess were downloading whatever premium content offer they had on their website and becoming members of their website. But what wasn't working for them is that those people weren't becoming customers. Those people were just consuming, and the content that they were creating was actually very lower level technology stuff. So they were IT or a software consulting company, and they were creating a lot of content about how to code in Python. Right, which is not something that a CIO or a CTO is even going to be interested in.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is when people tell me that they did this something and it didn't convert, my first thing is like, did the content you create, did it map exactly to the people who are going to buy your product? And the answer normally is no. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened.
Exactly. And so now I have to go through this whole exercise of convincing him. He's very skeptical right now that yes, content marketing works, but you just have to target the ideal persona, if you will, or the ideal profile of ideal customer.
And that's one of the things we've talked about many times on the show is that, people don't really market to who they know are going to buy the product. They market to their friends or they want to market to other engineers, but it isn't the engineer who's actually going to buy the product. So, what kind of cues can they give to make that better?
Well, I mean, what I think has been really valuable for me, I worked as a consultant for a company that was actually a duct tape marketing consulting certified company, and I actually went through the whole duct tape marketing certification process with John Jantz over in his in Kansas City, his home base, etc. And I mean, I think that was a fantastic training actually. And one of the great things I learned how to do, and I do it every time I get on a new engagement with a customer, is I get on the phone with at least 5 customers or 10 customers, and I have a freewheeling conversation with them where I go through a checklist of questions, but I make it really comfortable for them. I really want to get them talking so that they start getting into their emotional side of things instead of just answering questions, mechanically. And I really get from them what they use, what their vocabulary, what language they use, what kind of words they use to describe fascination with something or something they're excited about, what exclamations they use, and that way I can kind of get into their heads. And really getting on a phone call with somebody or actually having coffee with them or lunch with them is a great way of getting into their heads and writing content that kind of reflects that back to them.
I mean, I think a little bit of the crux of the matter is, we talk about is content marketing new? Is it not? Is it overused? Whatever. The bottom line is content is an extremely general term, and content takes many forms, and so people have been using content in some shape or form for many years, whether it be to market or to for communications. And so I think a lot of folks are taking some of that content that they provided in the past, which was likely always fairly dry, and they're sort of passing it on and saying, oh, we have content. We have a lot of content we've used before. Now we can make it digital, or we can translate it into throwing it up on our website or throwing it into a white paper. I think that's one thing. And I think secondly is in order to make things a little less, I'm not going to say dry, but to add some more personality to it, or to think outside of the box, to stand out and draw some attention rather than relying on, again, just a bunch of white papers, means actually implying applying, excuse me, some creativity. And I mean, the things that I think, at least for me, that seem to be the most attractive, appealing, and still informative and high value pieces of content. You talked about Marketo, and a lot of these other companies are companies that actually put some thought into knowing two things: who their customer is, right, and what their needs are, and then the other is how can we creatively create something beyond just a PDF document that has a bunch of information that will get their attention and communicate this in a compelling way. I mean, Steve, I don't know when it comes to the whole dry thing if that's sort of what you mean, but in my opinion, I think people just sort of lack the creative bone in there, you know, the creative bug, sort of, in a way.
I would agree, but I guess what I'm speaking to is, like, I think that dry has two pieces to it. Dry can, I think that, to Fernando's point, is like, it's one thing to bring creativity or interest or engagement in something you're doing, but I think it's okay to deal with something that's kind of that can be dry. But I think the real problem is when people talk about dry, what they do is they create this content. Fernando, I bet you see this all the time. I get people who say, "Hey, can we use this thing?" And they give me something that they want to use, and it is so not usable. It's like, did you read what you sent me? This thing is about, you know, something stupid or unusable, and not, you know, it can't be repurposed. And I think that's a problem. Is people don't think about who are my readers really? Who do I want to speak to specifically, and what are their needs? Do you see that very often? How do you guide your clients on that issue?
Well, I mean, I have actually a pretty recent example of that. I was working with a CMO who would insist on writing his own content sometimes, and it was some of the most illegible stuff I actually read. I couldn't believe it. And he insisted on there being the branding and talking points of the company within almost every single post or ebook or case study, post, ebook, webinar description we ever did.
Did he say it was
and
for
so
SEO? Because I love that.
No, he said it was for the talking points that he came up with and created in his own little brainstorming session.
And this is that issue of command and control. They go, "Hey, I'm talking about me on my blog, so let's talk about me on my blog." Mm-hmm. That's what that is, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
How did you get him to were you able to get him to stop and actually look at what he's doing and pay attention?
Well, I mean, I tried. One of the it almost had to come to a point where you have to be a little you have to push back. You have to be a little forceful with put the velvet glove on, but carry an iron fist. But I mean, I had to sit down with this guy and really try and explain to them what was appealing to audiences now. That people have a choice now. They don't have to sit through dry, boring content. They can turn the channel, hit the back button, and pick up their phone. We got to talk to them in a way that's valuable to them. They get something usable immediately.
So Fernando, let's go a little bit deeper on that, because that's interesting. So you talk about some of the wins, some of the clients you've worked with that you think are doing interesting things, and kind of what they're doing and how they're doing it, keeping it interesting. Yeah.
So one of the clients that I'm also working with right now, they actually get a lot of their people to blog. So they're an engineering-oriented company. But they get their head of sales to blog. They get some of their engineers to blog, and I thought, okay, well, that's going to be interesting. Engineers blogging. But I read their stuff, and it's actually pretty interesting. They don't write dry content. They write content with, kind of like the Brian Clark copy blogger style. When you have like the short paragraphs, and then they might have like a one-sentence paragraph, and you have anecdotes to kind of personalize or to bring a concept they're trying to explain about identity management, which is a very, high-level topic. They're trying to give it some kind of a concrete, real-world example, right? And it all starts with the CTO of the company, who is a guy I worked with back in the .com days when he was just a 20-something developer fresh out of college, and that was his personality. He grew up as a skateboarder, and he was a developer, and now he's a CTO, and he was the first guy that started blogging, and he set the tone for the whole company.
See, that's a great example when you can really you have somebody that can set that tone at the higher level, and other people kind of fall into step. And I think that's a perfect case scenario, right? We don't have that happen very often, but we'd like to see more of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Fernando, I wanted to kind of touch base here on something that you do, as far as creating content for Spanish language as well as English language and helping companies make that transition into the Latin American market. How is that working for you? I mean, how does that work happen?
Well, I mean, this is something that it's pretty new for us at the moment because we've been working with Latin American companies who are wanting to market in the U.S. market. And for one thing, number one thing, the battle is just kind of convince them that content marketing is a thing, and to get away from the traditional model of networking or visiting people on sales. The traditional, I'm going to cold call somebody, I'm going to go and have tequilas with somebody, I'm going to just use my Salesforce, etc. So that's the first battle. But the effort that we're starting to do in Latin America, we're like I said, we're partnered with a company out of San Antonio. That's going to take another bit of an effort in terms of not in terms of convincing the U.S. companies that this is a good approach, but in trying to tropicalize, if you will, the message to the Latin American market.
Tropicalize the message.
That's a new one for me too.
I want to tropicalize everything I do.
I'd like to be tropicalized.
I'm tropicalizing right now.
Caparinas.
Fernando, can you talk about I know that you talked about making content marketing accountable, and it's funny. I also just wrote not that long ago on the same topic. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your guidance is on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that really kind of turned me around on the whole accountability thing, because at first I was like, a content marketer that just believed in, just write what moves you and what moves your audience, and you'll just watch it grow organically, and don't worry about the metrics because it's content, for goodness sake, right? But a year ago I went to Content Marketing World, and I went to a talk by Andy Crestadina, and he kind of like totally turned me around about the whole metrics thing. So you can write content and then go out and measure it, track it, and see if it's actually converting, without making the content be very mechanistic or be painting by the numbers. So really, I think the first step is, and going back to my CMO example about the CMO who wanted to keep everything on message. They weren't doing any measurement or tracking at all either. I think there's a lot of companies out there that are still not holding their marketing or their content marketing accountable. And the first thing is to really get into just do the simple things first. Go in and set goals in Google Analytics. I mean, that's just so simple, but I think that there's still so many people that are not doing it. Setting goals for your thank you page, for signing up for your newsletter, or setting goals for whatever end destination you want to be, and then measure how your blog posts are doing and driving people to those goals. Using reverse paths in Google Analytics, and then comparing that to visits per blog post and getting conversion rates for each. Looking at what's the most popular content in terms of conversions and writing more of that kind of content. I mean, I think really you just have to start at the beginning, the basics first.
So do you think that ebooks now have become the new white paper as far as quality content goes? Is it just like cutifying the same crap they put in the white paper? Gee, did I say that?
No, because I think there are still white papers out there, but I think that ebooks are really, I think white papers are really kind of more still that sort of middle of the funnel thing, where people are wanting to really get deeply into a particular topic and get very immersed in it, whereas an ebook is very top of the funnel. It's like, okay, I went and saw a blog post, and now here's 7 ways to create the IT department of the 21st century, and because it's lighter, it's more focused on figures and graphics. and not so much on very deep analytical content like the papers are. So I still think that.
So really, maybe when you look at the different levels of the funnel, we got infographics way up here at the top, and social sharing, and then ebooks, and then white papers, and then actual conversations, maybe? Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think so, but I think that I think it's different for each scenario as well. So
sure.
And that's why it's so important to really kind of like Steve was asking me before about getting into the metrics and tracking content. Finding out really tracking all the way to the CRM. So if you have a HubSpot or a Marketo or Eloqua, make sure that that's attached to the CRM so that you can see, okay, actually had a closed win in Salesforce.com or Sugar CRM. Track it back to the very beginning. What were the content paths they took? Did they consume a white paper first and then they called up one of our salespeople, or they do ebook, then blog post, then webinar, then white paper, etc. It's just kind of all over the map, and I think it's very particular for each company.
Is there, Fernando, any particular methodology or process you use when it comes to? I would imagine you might start from the beginning with a buyer. Who is the buyer? Who is the person in the end we want to compel? Their audience is a wide thing, but who's the one that's making the decision in the end to spend their money and plunk it down? Starting from there, and then making a decision of what part of the funnel that they're in, and then what kind of content you work on. Is there a process or methodology that you use to sort of go through and create a piece of content mapped to that particular buyer?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of different ways to call it, but I think a very valuable tool that I use is really kind of to audit your content, kind of like the way content strategists do with a spreadsheet, where you audit your content and you document each piece of content and what it's for, and you categorize each piece of existing content first to see what content is what content exists for persona A, persona B, persona C, and then for each one of those personas, what content exists for awareness, what content exists for the interest, the decision, and the action piece. And really from there you see, okay, well, we have a lot of content that's for decision stuff for CFOs, but we don't have any content here for sponsors or champions that are in the awareness or the interest stage. So it's kind of a very methodical approach that makes sure that you're filling all the gaps. So once you see all the gaps, then you start creating content for those areas. And then it depends on what each company, like for example, I was just a new client we brought on the other day. They have a lot of content for all parts of the funnel, but they were very interested in getting that awareness content going because they just really didn't have a lot of visits or a lot of conversions online. They had a lot of case studies for converting customers but they didn't have anything up the funnel, if you will.
So that's really important, just to wrap that up, that it's important to look at all levels of the funnel and figure out, who are we talking to at each of those levels and what kind of content do we have for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So at this point of our show, we usually go to shares, and I know that both Steve and Adam have shares. Which one of you guys wants to go first and share a little bit of stuff that you found on the internet?
I think Steve wants to go first.
I can. Mine's a quickie, and it actually dovetails into our thing. Heidi Sullivan on Jay Baer's Convince and Convert blog wrote a thing about what marketers, content marketers, can learn from PR. And fundamentally, she just talks about, PR people are trained to tell a story without saying click here, buy me now. And so because we have to tell a narrative and tell, PR, I'm talking like I'm still a PR person. Back when I was a PR person,
narrative.
We have to tell, we're telling a story, and it has to be story-like. And her article, her post, which we'll share on the blog, is really about understanding, when you do content marketing, you're also telling a story, and so you need to have that mindset of telling a story, and that's for 99%. It's not about you. It's about someone else, something else, focusing on their needs, and it's only kind of related to you or supports things. It's just that the content marketers can just learn to like a little less me, and a little bit more storytelling narrative that supports the brand narrative, what you're trying to communicate for your thing. So that'll be up on the link will be up on our blog.
We'll add it in the blog, and it'll be linked in this Hangout as well. Adam, how about you? What you got this morning?
What you got? What you got? I'm trying to make sure that I find. But basically, I found this really interesting as a fan of. I'm looking at my other monitor here so that I can sort of pull it up. But as a fan of visual content and visual content marketing, there was a story about the Marriott's hotels. Essentially using virtual reality to transport people to some of their far-off locations, right? So when you want to sort of sell your rooms and your destinations, what better way than to try to like let people get a taste of it as even sort of viscerally, physically, emotionally, mentally, visually, and so they created these booths that kind of look like transport, chambers from Star Trek or something, and you put on an Oculus Rift or one of the other sort of visors that go over your eyes and tracks your head movements. So as you're looking around, it looks like you're looking around the room and everything sort of interacts. And I'm not sure whether they sort of also had the platform. There's some platforms that you could walk on that when you walk, your feet sort of just continue to slip. So as you're walking around, it feels like you're actually moving through a room per se. And they took folks to they recreated their hotel essentially virtually, so that people could just transport off to, for instance, their Hawaii location and walk around and actually look at it and check out how nice it is and walk up to different things and take a peek at them, and their whole body reacts to whatever movement they have in that virtual world. So I found it really interesting that people were taking the visual content marketing even farther and even turning it into really experiential content marketing, the next best thing to actually flying somebody out there to experience the place themselves. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Actually, I don't know if you saw the Infinity ad that they just did, but it's really amazing. They have a camera that's kind of like a Google camera. It has a 360-degree view up, and they put it on the roof of the car, and they put it down on the sides of the car, and then they drive the car through this landscape and on the road and all this stuff, and you hear the car accelerating. Then they came back, and they projected in a room, and you can sit in the car.
Oh, wow.
The back wheels turning, you're actually shifting and accelerating, and you're seeing this whole thing all around you in 360-degree full color.
That's pretty cool. That's actually really
so
nice.
Awesome. I'll post a link to that video as well because it's pretty amazing.
That's cool.
So I think the places that people are going like this to make experiential content is really insane. It's just taking off like crazy, and with drones and GoPros and everything else, the quality of the content has improved so much that it's pretty impressive.
Jen, you actually had a really cool share. Do you want to jump into that?
Is that a surprise that she has a cool share?
Yeah,
well, it's only a surprise to me because it's actually a little bit more in my court than normal. So
I was thinking of you, Steve. I was thinking of you. So this is a slide share from my friends at Top Rank, and it's actually a really cool slide share about the future of B2B marketing. And some of the things that they talk about in there are things that we talked about today. The crossover between the old style of marketing and the new style of marketing, and where they think they're going. And I don't know if anybody's a fan of the Minority Report here, but I am a fan of the Minority Report. And they were really talking about like B2B futurists, and that there's a quote on one of the slides that I thought was really great, and it's from Justin Steinman. And it says, in the future, prospects will react so positively to precognitive marketing. I can't say that. Precognitive marketing. They'll call you to ask for a sales call. And, geez, perfect world? Sure, yeah, okay, let's make that happen. Maybe tomorrow. You know, but I think that a lot of the things that we do with content marketing, right, is really to stimulate that call from out of the blue instead of having to like shove it down their throats and make them call us. What do you guys think?
I'm all for it. I actually, I mean, I have to say that it's like one of those things. I think those are kind of big ideas. I know that's a thing, but how that really ends up looking in real life is where the rubber meets the road. So it's like, hey, it's cool, but kind of see what that starts looking like in real life.
You know, I'd use HubSpot as an example of that, except that nobody knows what HubSpot does. But all of their marketing, well, okay, but here's the thing. All of HubSpot's marketing is so smart about the miracle of social media, and here's what you need to do, and they're always on top of every single thing within seconds. You know, their writers are totally paying attention. It's all HubSpot, so awesome. But most of the people that share HubSpot, I would bet 95%, if you ask them what HubSpot does, they don't know.
I think that's true, and I think that Mike Volpe, a couple of years ago, who's their CMO and a super, super smart guy, I think he's brought on some, you know, he intentionally kind of changed marketing and brought people in like Joe Chernoff, and I think that they're starting to turn that around.
Well, yeah, they are, because they had to. I mean, they couldn't keep not marketing themselves. I mean, there's a difference between unmarketing and unmarketing, but I could go on about that for a really long time. But you know, we've
SlideShare. I really like that SlideShare that you were talking about right now, and a lot of it was actually pretty funny and tongue-in-cheek too.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. It's a great SlideShare, and we'll make sure that it's on the website as well. Gosh, we've been going on and on for a while, so we're gonna wrap up the show. Fernando, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
All right, you can find me at contentpropulsion.com, Twitter,
I like that.
Labastida, Flabastida. Thanks. That was my business partner's idea.
Cool.
We're doing it.
Yay! And those links will also be on the website. And Mr. Farnsworth, where can they find you?
You can find me at Steveology on Twitter.
That's easy.
That's easy. I'm easy.
Adam?
You can find me at jfouts. No, I'm just kidding. Secret Sushi, pretty much anywhere, and you just look for Adam Hellway as well.
Cool. And I'm jfouts on Twitter, or you can find me at janetfouts.com. And I'd like to remind people that you can see all of the shows at thefridayhangout.com. You can also follow us on YouTube, on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, and we have an app for both iPhone and Android where you can listen to the podcasts, which are sometimes much better. Video quality aside, we don't have to worry about that in podcasts, and all you get is the audio. And we'd love to hear comments on what you think of the show and who else you think should be on the show.
And make sure you download our app. Okay, that was a conversation killer.
No, there's a weird laggy pause thing going on, so I think that's what it was.
Because there's a weird laggy pause thing going on, we're going to say goodbye, and as Steve says, we love your faces.
We do love